Hello, I'm Will and this is Mike with the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And in this video we're looking at issue 7 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine, which came with the first sprue to make 10 Tyranid Termagants and a Ripper Swarm, and it also came with a 12-inch measuring ruler. We'll have to wait till the next issue to finish building these, but we'll have a look at the build guide for them in this issue, and then we'll be looking at some more lore and playing our game, and we're going to be learning about movement and ranges. So, looking inside the magazine, we have the build guide for the Termagants. Once again, we don't have enough parts to make all of them. We won't get to the bases until the next issue, but you can see how to put them together here. So this is where you will find the build guide when you do get the rest of the parts in the next issue. Mostly about 3 or 4 parts each. They all go together pretty easily and they are push fit, so you don't need glue. And the build guide for all 10 is here, as well as the one base of Rippers, which is also only 4 parts, and they go on the slightly larger 40mm base. And then we have some lore on the Space Marines, the Angels of Death as they're known. As we said before, these are superhuman warriors of the Imperium, few in number but mighty in power, and to most Imperial citizens they are almost legendary figures who appear at the hour of darkest need to rescue the servants of the Emperor. Their preferred method of warfare is launching lightning strikes, where their power and individual heroism can be best employed since they don't have the numbers for wars of attrition. Typically they'll launch a surgical strike into the place where they can have the most impact in the battle. But as mighty as they are, they work best in concert with the rest of the Imperium's armed forces. After all, a Space Marine force can inflict a lot of damage and accomplish key objectives but can't really hold ground or take an entire star system by themselves, so they work best as part of a larger Imperial force. Then we learn about the hive mind of the Tyranids, a sort of mysterious gestalt intelligence that guides the Tyranid hive fleets, a sort of malevolent intelligence that guides their actions across the galaxy. And every Tyranid organism is an extension of the will of the hive mind. It's not known exactly what the hive mind is, whether it's a collective intelligence or a psychic entity or even some sort of god, but it ensures that the Tyranids launch coordinated assaults where every beast is employed for a particular purpose and will never break and flee while the hive mind directs it. And the way the will of the hive mind is enforced among the Tyranids is via the synapse creatures, which generally larger, psychically active Tyranids that distill the will of the hive mind to the lesser creatures at its command, some of which are a little more than animalistic beasts with no individual intelligence of their own. And there are some examples here, so the Neuro-Tyrant, which is an extremely powerful psychic creature, and a powerful conduit of what's called the Shadow in the Warp, sort of an oppressive presence that can stifle or drive mad the psychic individuals of other races. There's the Termagant, which typically controls lesser beasts like the Termagants and can even birth more of them and acts as a sort of mother creature to these smaller organisms. And finally the Tyranid Warriors, which are not as large as those creatures, but fight in broods themselves, deadly combatants that also help drive the smaller creatures across the battlefield. Finally, we have a short story called Decapitation, which is about a Space Marine captain and his brothers fighting against some Tyranids and realising that the battle as it's going will end up costing them more casualties than they can afford. But upon consideration, they realise that if they destroy the synapse creatures in charge of the Horde, then they might be able to break the psychic link to the hive mind and gain an advantage over the Tyranids. But that's it for the contents of the issue, so I'll hand you over to Mike, who will be teaching us about moving and ranges, and then taking us into our game.
So before we get into today's game, we have a fair few new rules to learn because we're covering movement and measuring. So we got our new ruler, you can see a picture of it there, it's a 12-inch ruler. All measurements in Warhammer 40,000 are made in inches, and it's shortened using the double apostrophe punctuation mark. And when you measure distances between the model's bases. And there are some exceptions, but any model with a base, you will measure from base to base. So first up we'll be learning about movement and coherency. Obviously moving around is a pretty important part of the game because otherwise your units wouldn't actually go anywhere and you just try and shoot each other at max range. So on every data sheet it shows a model's movement, that's under the M, so you can see there the Infernus squad have a movement of 6 inches. And when you move a model, you measure from the same part of the base at the beginning and the end. So you can see in this example, this Infernus Marine is moving 5 inches, so you measure from the front of his base and you move him until the front of his base is in line with the 5-inch mark on the ruler. Obviously you can measure from the back to the back, but you don't measure from the back and move to the front. That's technically cheating. And you can't move more than your move characteristic as part of a normal move. And you can change direction and rotate on their bases freely while you move them. And unit coherency, if a unit is a squad, then they have to remain within 2 inches of at least one other model in their unit. When they make a move, they have to stay in coherency. So you can see in that example, all of those Infernus Marines are within 2 of at least one other member of their squad. And as you might expect, there are some limitations on where you can move. So you can't move through enemy models. For the time being, you can't move through solid terrain pieces, although again there are some exceptions. And obviously you can't move off the battle mat and come back on it or anything like that. And units also have an engagement range, which is a 1-inch bubble around the model, and you can't go within engagement range of an enemy model. The only way to get into engagement range is to charge, but we'll learn about that in the next issue. And now you can see an example. The Infernus Marines have just moved 6 inches, staying on the board and away from the Tyranid Prime there, and they are still coherent at the end of it. So again, it might seem a little complicated, but it's fairly simple once you get the hang of it. And then we have weapon ranges. So as you might expect, you look at the data sheet and then everything within that range is in range. So you can see in this example, Infernus Marine Spire Blaster has a 12-inch range. You measure from the front of the Infernus Marine's base, and the Tyranid Prime is within 12 of the Infernus Marine, so it is in range, whereas those von Ryan's Leapers are just out of range. It mentions threat ranges here, which I don't think is any sort of an official rule, but it is one way of thinking about what to do with your units. You can think about their threat range, which is essentially their movement plus the range of their weapons. It's the area of the battlefield they can influence if they combine their movement and their shooting range. So I guess that gives you an idea of where to focus on. And obviously line of sight is a thing, so you can see the card terrain there is being treated as if it's tall enough to block line of sight. So the Infernus Marine can't see over the terrain, but if he moves, he can see the Tyranid around it and still shoot. And then we're into today's game, where the Infernus Marine squad is being sent to destroy a vital cluster of Tyranid breeding organisms. However, the Tyranid hive mind has a whole subspecies bred for defense, which are the Barbgaunts, who are defending the area. Luckily for the Infernus Marines, there's plenty of Tyranid growths and whatnot that they can use as cover to get in range of the Barbgaunts and hopefully incinerate them all before they are killed in turn. So we have our board, we have the Barbgaunts starting in the top left, and then the Infernus Marines starting in the bottom right, and then 2 bits of the terrain covering the centre of the battlefield. And in this game, the Barbgaunts are going to be stationary for the whole game, and the Marines have to move, so they need to try and get in range without all getting shot to pieces. So in this example, they're moving up, and you can see that the Barbgaunts can see through the gap between those 2 terrain pieces, so they can shoot this turn. But then on the next turn, the Infernus Marines are able to get into cover behind some of the terrain, meaning the Barbgaunts can no longer see them and cannot shoot them. And in turn 3, the Marines are able to move around the terrain and are now in range to try and burn the Barbgaunts. And then the game will continue until one side is destroyed. And then it has the little victory boxes here, so you can pause and read them now if you want to, and decide which side you want to win. And then we'll just get straight into the game. So here we are, we've got our combat cards to hand, and we've got the Barbgaunts up there in the top left, and the Marines down here in the bottom right. You can see, if you're eagle-eyed, we're using our magazine-specific sergeant, obviously because the other squad got wiped out in the previous issue. But the Space Marines get to go first, and they get to make a move.
So, as we said, each Space Marine has a move of up to 6 inches, so what I'll do is I'll put the range ruler down in front of the Space Marines and then move it, putting the front of the base where I was measuring from at the 6-inch mark. And I'm going to do that for all 5 models, like this, and then at the end of this move they still have to be in coherency, as we discussed, meaning that they're all within 2 inches of at least one other model in their unit, which, as you can see, they are. Yeah, so I could shoot, but as you can see, the Barbgaunts are more than 12 inches away, and actually most of the Marines won't be able to see past this terrain anyway, so I don't think it would matter, even if they were in range.
Checking line of sight, 2 of the Barbgaunts can see the Marines. It's not particularly clear in the example, because in the example they used, all the Barbgaunts can clearly see a Marine, but I guess we'll do how it would make sense to do. So only 2 Barbgaunts can see, which means only 2 can shoot. So I have 2d6 shots. 5 shots needing 4s, getting 4 hits, and wounding on 3s because the Barbgaunts is a strength 5 versus a Marine's toughness of 4. No, only 1 wound.
And a 3+ save for a Marine, which I have succeeded, so no damage. So we're back to the Marine's turn and I get to move again. Now I don't have to move my full 6 inches, so I'm actually going to move only about maybe 5 inches for some of these Marines, because this means that they'll all be hidden behind this terrain feature, meaning the Barbgaunts won't be able to shoot them, in the hope that next turn I'll be able to jump out and be in range before they get to shoot me.
And that is definitely the case. None of the Barbgaunts can see the Marines, so they can't shoot, so the Marines will get to move again.
Now I can't move over or through the terrain, so what I'm actually going to do is move the Sergeant, for example, 2 inches this way, but then he's still got 4 inches more of movement, so when measuring around things you can do it like that by breaking it down into smaller chunks. And then each of these models individually can move up to 6, so we're just going to do a combination of partial moves, making sure that everybody gets to their remaining in coherency as before. But now we might be in range to shoot, so we're going to measure using our measuring stick, and we can see the sergeant is definitely in range. There are some Barbgaunts that are less than 12 inches away. The two in the next rank are both in range, but the rear ones you can see, so that's the measuring from the back guy, is not within 12 inches, so won't be able to shoot.
Yeah, neat. The magazine doesn't actually state it, but you can fire through members of your own unit without injuring your own squad. It's assumed people can get out of the way and so forth.
Yes, and indeed that you can see through members of your own unit. So with 3 members in range, it'll be 3d6 shots, or 3d6 automatic hits, because if you remember they are a torrent weapon. That will be a total of 10. Pyroblasters are strength 5 and Barbgaunts are toughness 4, so they also need 3s to wound. However, that is only 4, not a great roll. But they have no AP.
And I need to make 4+ saves for the Barbgaunts. I made 3, and they have 2 wounds each, so one of them takes a wound. Yeah, I'm actually going to put the damage on the one of the Barbgaunts in the front, just so the Marines will have to move again if they want to continue shooting at the unit. But now the Barbgaunts can definitely all see Marines, so they all get to shoot for 5d6 shots, so that will be 16. I'll do it in batches, so first batch is 8, looking for 4s, gets 4 hits. Second batch gets 5 hits, 9 overall. Wounding on 3s, 5 wounds.
Needing 3s to save. This time we have failed 1, so a Space Marine will take a wound. So we're going to move again to make sure that all the members of the unit are in range, and I'm not going to worry too much about the exact distance here, just that they're all moving no more than 6 inches, but they are all in range, as you can see here, and so they can all shoot. So for 5d6 automatic hits, that'll be 20. So I'll do 2 batches of 10, first lot, needing 3s to wound, 7, and the second batch looking for 3s again. That's only 5 this time, but that'll be 12 wounds in total.
So 12 4+ saves. I failed 5, so that will kill 3 Barbgaunts overall. So wounded 1 will die, and then 2 more. There'll be only 2 Barbgaunts left to shoot back. So 2d6 shots, all for 11. Clearly these are the 2 of the biggest ones. Hitting on 4s, 5 hits. Looking for 3s, getting 3.
3+ saves. Failed 1, that will kill the injured Marine. So this one goes down, and we're going to move up again. Again, I'm not going to bother measuring, we're just going to move 3 or 4 inches, get up nice and close to the Xenos to purge them with fire, and then we'll shoot them again. Only 4 left, so we're going to get 4d6 hits this time. Well, that's not brilliant, that is only 9, which will wound on 3s. 7 wounds though. 7
4+ saves. Oh, failed 3, so 1 Barbgaunt is left on 1 wound. Can it take down another Marine before it's incinerated? It gets 5 shots. Hitting on 4s, getting 3. 3s to wound, getting 2.
2 saves, failed 1, so a damage is dealt. 46 automatic hits, no need to move. Oof, that's 20. So first batch of 10, only 5 wounds. And the second batch gets 8. So there's 13 wounds on the last remaining Barbgaunt.
Right, just needs to make 13 saves. We'll do a batch of 6 first. Yeah, it's failed 4 of them, so it's already dead. So with the last Barbgaunt barbecued probably about 4 times over, that will definitely be a Marine victory. So we might play through once again, and we won't show the movement process for this one. And we'll probably wait in future games just to speed things up. So reset the board, redeployed the Barbgaunt slightly differently just so there's a bit more line of sight coverage, but the Marines will get to move first again. I will just show the results of that movement this time.
So this time we're taking a different path.
Yep, but 4 of the Barbgaunts can now see this Marine hanging around at the back. So 46 shots, 17. So first batch of 9, looking for 4s to hit, getting 5. Second batch, getting 4. So that will be 9 hits overall. Looking for 3s to wound. That's only 5.
5 saves. Failed 1, a wound on a Marine. And then the Marines have moved again up to 6 inches, getting behind the terrain feature this time.
And the Barbgaunts definitely can't see them now, so they'll move again.
Moving round out of the cover again, and we get 3 in range. So 3d6 automatic hits, 9. Wounding on 3s, only 4.
4 4+ saves, made 2, so we do lose a Barbgaunt. 46 shots coming back, getting 20. First batch of 10 shots, looking for 4s. 6 from the first batch of 10. And 3 from the second batch. That's a little disappointing. 9 hits, looking for 3s. Getting 6 this time.
3s to save. Failing 2. So this guy dies, and then I suppose the back man will take a wound. Another thing the magazine doesn't actually mention incidentally is you can put wounds on any model in the unit, even if they're not actually visible to the shooting model. Moving up once again, we get all of the pyroblasters in range for 4d6 automatic hits. 14. Roll all of them at once. We do have enough dice for this, so 3s to wound, 10.
10, 4+ saves. Oh, only failed 2. So that is 1 dead Barbgaunt, 3 remaining. 3d6 shots from the barb launchers. Oh, well, no. I must have removed the best one. That was only 8 shots. 8 shots hitting on 4s, getting 5. And wounding on 3s, getting 4.
4 saves. Oh, made all of them. And then we won't need to move again, we'll just do another 4d6 automatic hits. Oh, not so good out here either though, that's only 9 again. Looking for 3s. 6. 6
4+ saves. Failed 3, so we lose another Barbgaunt and 1 will take a wound. Only 2 left. 2d6. Oh, only 3 shots. Hitting on 4s, getting 2 and 3s. They both wound.
Saves. Oh, the injured one dies.
Yes.
Marines left and their cross are going to form a firing line.
Yeah, they need to avenge their fallen brothers.
3d6 hits, 12 on 3s. That'll be 8.
Carapace has held up pretty well so far, but we fail 4, and that will be enough to kill off the rest of the Barbgaunts. 3 Marines remain standing. That is another Marine victory. And I think we'll leave it there. I think we've got the gist of movement and using cover, so I'll recap that game for you now. Well, that was the game for issue 7 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine. How do you think that went?
Well, an awful lot better than the one from the previous issue. It suggests that if the Space Marines had just stopped to shoot at the Barbgaunts in the previous mission, then they might have done okay, but I don't know, maybe they were out of ammunition or something. But yeah, once the Space Marines get to shoot back and have a bit of cover to hide behind so they're not just being bombarded, turns out they do quite well against Barbgaunts.
Yeah, the fact that they hit automatically is a pretty big advantage.
Well, yeah, they have the same number of shots at the same strength, but they hit automatically and the Barbgaunts have a worse save. So, statistically speaking, the only thing in the Space Marines' disadvantage is their shorter range.
But yeah, and that's the basics of movement and measuring ranges and things. I mean, technically, I think that the Barbgaunts in the corner possibly could still be out of range of the Marines in the opposite corner.
Yeah, it doesn't mention... It is on their datasheet they have a 24-inch range, so that covers pretty much the whole entirety of this board, but...
It is a little bit nice to effectively have several mechanics introduced at once and not just one at a time. Although there are some more nuances to movement that we haven't learnt, which we did sort of see in a previous issue with advancing, where units can move further but not shoot. But again, this is for beginners and you want to get the hang of using the measuring stick as well.
In fact, given the slow pace of the rules introduction that we've been having up to this point, it almost felt like this issue introduced quite a lot of things but glossed over them slightly, like the line of sight. You actually only need to be able to see one model of the unit to shoot at, the whole unit, but only models that can see something can shoot and all that kind of thing. Not sure if that was explicitly stated, so we found ourselves having to do a little bit of interpretation.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of nuance to line of sight, which might be a bit difficult to appreciate if you're not using 3D terrain as well. And also, it does seem like these games are also designed to be played on your own, or it seems to, actually with the way the magazine words, it almost seems like you're intended to play them. It's just so you can learn the rules on your own. That's quite an interesting way to do it, and I guess it is a little bit quicker than trying to find someone else to play the game with you.
Yeah, and if you're unsure about any of the rules, because you can play through these as many times as you want by yourself, since they allow that.
And the 12-inch measuring stick you get is perfectly adequate for most of the time. It is quite handy to actually have a range of lengths, or at least a 12 at the minimum. You probably want a tape measure for anything over 12 inches, but it is still handy to have a 12-inch one around, just to get into smaller places, or if you want to make smaller movements and check shorter ranges, it's certainly a lot more convenient.
Yeah, 12 inches is a common distance for ranges and movement that comes up quite a lot in the game, so it is handy to have one that length. 3, 6 and 9 inches also come up quite a lot, so it's handy to have those if you can get hold of some, or actually make your own. There's no reason why you couldn't just make a 6-inch long piece of card or something and use that as a measuring stick, as long as you make sure it's done accurately.
Yeah, and quite often, while it might not be technically sort of in the rules, a lot of what people will do is, if you just move the front member of the unit, you can move the ones behind without measuring precisely, just to speed things up a little bit. Although you may need to be a bit careful if you're on the edge of weapon ranges or charge ranges and so on, but we'll probably see that in later games as well.
Yeah, and some of the units we do get with these collections going forward will be larger units that measuring in each one individually can become a little tedious and doesn't really add anything, as long as you're not trying to gain any advantage in the game by not measuring properly.
Oh yeah, and we got the first set of the Termagants. You don't have any bases yet, although you might be able to build a few of them with the build guide, but I would wait until the next issue before you can get all the bases and stuff, just so you don't lose anything, keep it all together. That would be an example of a bigger unit on the battlefield, so it'll be exciting to get that. We'll start to see the whole Tyranid swarm, because the Tyranid units we've seen so far haven't really been that big. I mean, there's the same number of Barbgaunts as there are Space Marines, so we're not really getting the whole swarm feel out of the faction yet. But anyway, I don't think there's much more to say about this game or this issue. So as always, leave a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. Leave us any comments, how you've been getting on, if you have any questions, and we'll hopefully be able to answer them. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.